Oh, yeah, they could say, "Yeah, I want to be a doctor," when they are 12 years old, and you don't discredit that. You ask questions like, "Really? Well, tell me more about that. And what about that interests you? Or how do you think you're going to what is your path to get there?" And then you keep having this conversation because, as we all know, no 12-year-old knows what they want to do with their life. Most 18-year-olds don't know what they want to do with their life either.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to 2026. This is Gretchen Rowe for the Demi Learning Show, and I am so excited to welcome my friend Alice Reinhardt today to talk about educating your child beyond high school. We have so many things to talk about. And really, what we want to do with this conversation is we want to reframe your thinking so that you can have a reasonable conversation with your student and dwell in the world of possibility. Alice and I are from the generation where the American dream was that you went on to college. But that American dream has changed, and it's changed financially, it's changed emotionally. And I think we need do our kids a disservice when we just make the assumption that the next right step forward is a college experience. So Alice and I are here today to help you think differently. And between the two of us, we have 13 children. So I think
Right.
we can probably give you some different perspectives. Our kids range in age from 20 to how old is Caleb?
42, I think.
Okay.
44.
So
44.
so we have effectively spanned two generations of kids. And we have the opportunity now to talk to you about some kids who've gone to college, some kids who haven't, some kids who have chosen different paths. And a lot of that information we're going to share with you today. Let's begin, Alice, with letting you introduce yourself, if you would be so kind.
Well, I'm Alice Reinhardt, and my husband and I own Rhino Technologies, and that's a recording company that we do for conferences such as the homeschool conferences. I also am the founder of Speakeasy, and then it's a life coaching, and homeschool consulting business. And I'm down to my last class and a half to have my degree and my certification done, which I'm very, very happy about that. Uh, as Gretchen said, we've got a lot of kids between us. I have seven and homeschooled for 35 years. All but one graduated from home education, and his is the story that really changed my perspective on a lot of things. So yeah, and what I like to bring to the table, uh, I like to bring to the table the things that I've done wrong, or the things that I missed, or the things that I looked at and go, I wish I'd done that for my kids, and that. And Gretchen, I'll say, I really like how you mentioned that it is about reframing our thinking, because what I've learned is that unless you become aware that you are thinking in a given path, and this path is there because that's just what you've been shown and taught, and it's what you do, you're just going to continue doing that with your child. And so I'm with you on that. I like reframing, and it's not easy to reframe. I'm old, and yet my kids say, "Mom, continually you're challenging your thoughts, your ways you believe, just how you think about things." And I think that's a really an important thing that parents learn to do.
Yes, I know that my younger children benefited from maybe the inflexibility I had with my older children because I learned along the way. I learned the things I needed to sweat and the things I didn't need to sweat. And really, today we want to talk about how the career landscape is changing. Now, let me also say at the outset that this conversation with Alice today is a two-part conversation. So, we're going to have this conversation today, and we're going to talk about parental mindset And then later in the month, we are going to have the opportunity to talk with Hannah Murayama. And Hannah is the founder of something called the Degree Free Way. On the last week of the month, we're going to talk about what if your student's path to success is not through college? And Hannah is going to bring the receipts as far as what do we know as far as how a college education affects your ability to earn income as an adult. And I'm looking forward to that discussion. But Alice and I are also prepared with a set of receipts. And I'll tell you the first thing is we've been acculturated to believe that the path to success is through college. But I'm here to tell you in the state I reside in alone, in North Carolina, we will be 56,000 electricians short by 2030. The average age of an electrician is 61 years old. The reason this is relevant to me is because that is the path forward that my youngest son chose. He's 20 years old. He's 6 months from his certification. And as a certified electrician, he will be able to write his financial ticket. I'll be honest with you all, he's earning more money per hour than a couple of his college graduate siblings, but we don't talk about that in the family because nobody would be happy, right? But it required of me a change in my thinking about what is really important. What does your child want to do? And this is a conversation that doesn't begin as a senior in high school. This is a conversation that begins with your middle schooler. And so, Alice, you say this so eloquently about this is an ongoing conversation. Can you give us some insights into why the conversation needs to be ongoing?
Well, Gretchen, the first thing that I just want to say is that as a homeschooling parent, I really want parents to understand what a gift, what a wonderful opportunity they have been given to develop this relationship with their child. And that in that it goes beyond education, but it's part of that in that regard. And my husband Mark and we were continually saying, I never had these conversations with my parents. And I'm talking about conversations that even now with my adult children that I have, but also with my grandkids, that I will go in and listen to them. And I think that's the thing. I think as a parent, we tend to be the ones that are always telling them what to do. And we get on this, we are on this loop. Okay. And if you ever notice that they're not saying anything back to you, it is time to hit the pause button, because that's what our goal needs to be, Gretchen, is hearing them, listening to them, asking them questions, finding out where they are as a middle schooler. Oh, yeah, they could say, yeah, I want to be a doctor when they are 12 years old. Um, and you don't discredit that. You ask questions like, really? Well, tell me more about that. And what about that interests you? Or how do you think you're going to what is your path to get there? And then you keep having this conversation, because as we all know, no 12-year-old knows what they want to do with their life. Most 18-year-olds don't know what they want to do with their life either. But
Some
they
60 plus people
oh
don't know
yeah,
what,
we're not going to go
but
there, okay? Because of yeah. We'll discuss that another time. But it is an ongoing. And truthfully, yes, academics are so important, and being serious about the academic work that you do. But I'm telling you, you have got to establish conversations with your child, not communication. Communication is very sterile. I'm talking about conversations, asking hard questions. I also think, as a parent of 7, and having gone through the various launchings and the coming backs and the relaunchings and the coming backs and all of that, um, it was a lesson for me to learn to start seeing them as an individual, you know, and start seeing this person not as just my property, but as an individual who is looking to find their journey, and me getting to just be allowed to be a part of that. So again, those are some mistakes that I made, that in hindsight I look back and I go, oh, I was allowed to be a part of this, and appreciate that too, instead of feeling threatened.
Yeah. I there's something that comes with the ability to mature in our own space to be able to give our kids the space to breathe. And I know I saw that evolution in my own homeschooling life when my eldest daughter was approaching the age of college. I said, I don't frankly care what you major in, but I want you to have a college degree because it's a ticket punch to a better life. But now that was 20 plus years ago, and if you look at the average cost per year, when you and I were preparing last week, for this conversation, we, had the infinite ability of the internet at the end of our fingertips, and we looked up the average cost per year for a college education now is $38,000 a year.
Yes. Yes. I was just before this podcast, I was talking with a young lady that I work with, and she was like, "So why you're doing this podcast?" And I was telling her, and she said, "What's it on?" And so I was telling her this, and she said, "I will be $40,000 in debt." And I said, "And that's with the bachelor's?" And I didn't want to be disparaging to her, but anymore, you can't do anything with the bachelor's. But before I could even say that, she said, "Yeah, and my master's is going to cost me another 50." Now, I did not ask her what she was majoring in. It could be underwater basket weaving. I don't know. But that cost did not keep in line with the cost of living that we are experiencing. Back when you and I were in college, well, I read something the other day, and I may have sent it to you, that a kid could work during the summer, a teenager could work during the summer and end up being able to save enough to pay for their college education.
Right, right.
That it doesn't happen now.
That ship has sailed,
That ship
truly.
has sailed. Yes, it has.
You know, one of the things that I want to include as resources, so make sure that you pay attention to the show notes because I'm going to include two webinars, maybe three, that we did in 2025 that were talking about the importance of having the soft skill set. And one of them was with a gentleman named Danny Rubin, and Rubin Education is all about helping individual students understand that it's not just the degree you get, but it's the ability how you relate to others, how you can converse, how you can have conversational interactions, how you interview, how you bring your presence to the table. And that's something that we can affect as homeschool parents right around our kitchen table. We can make that happen. The second webinar that I also want to include was an interview I did with a young man named Dan Chimento. Now, I say he's a young man. Dan's in his 30s. That's young compared to
That's young.
me. And Dan is a software engineer, and he talks about being in the management position of he doesn't care what your hard skill set is. If you can't bring the soft skill set to the table, you're not the employee he's looking for. And one of the questions that was asked of us several times in registrants is what jobs will be safe from an AI takeover? And the truth of the matter is, it's not the job, it's the skill set. Do you have the ability to think flexibly? Do you have the ability to um, switch horses in the middle of the stream? Do you have the ability to be a consensus builder? Those are the soft skills that today's college graduates are desperate to produce in order to be successful.
That is right. And so for our listeners, would you go ahead and develop exactly what you mean by soft skills? Like
Sure.
give us something here to run with, okay?
Well, so Can you sit down and have an interview conversation? Have you thought through the questions for an interview? I'll give you an example. My daughter-in-law yesterday was to be interviewing a new employee, a potential new employee, in a Zoom call, and they didn't show up. They didn't send an email and say, "I'm not gonna be there," nothing. And, 24 hours went by, and she reached out and said, "Hey, what happened?" And that potential employee did not apologize, did not own the fact that they had missed the appointment. They just said, "When can you schedule me for another appointment?" That's a lacking set of soft
That is a
skills.
very much that's exactly what people need to hear and understand that we are talking about here. We're talking about the skills of being able to look someone in the eye as you're
Yes.
talking to them and say complete sentences and also possibly use your manners such as yes sir. I mean that those things are not lost on people when you can be mannerly and polite in a conversation. How you dress. I mean, this is really important, and I have to laugh because we were actually talking about this last weekend when our oldest son was getting his driver's license, or he had his permit, and he hit a speed trap. I was with him, so he had to go to court. Well, when he went to court, he was 18 years old, so he was a senior in high school, right? Because our kids delayed getting their license, and he goes in, and I told him, I said, "You will wear a dress shirt, you will wear a tie, and you will wear dress slacks." And so he's standing in front of this judge, and this judge going, "Why are you here? Why aren't you like?" And he said to him, he said, "Young man, I want to in 2 weeks I want to know that you've gotten a full-time job." And Caleb's kind of looking at him, and looked back to us, and finally Mark spoke up. He said, "Sir, he's in high school." Oh, well, okay. But the point being is that his attire caught that judge's attention. All
Sure.
right. And that the number of people that will go into an interview with a ball cap on. No, no. So you need to be able to present yourself. You need to know how to talk about yourself. Okay, you need to know how to advocate for you and your skills. I was very late to the game in learning this, and actually had a class in which I had to do it, and it made me so uncomfortable. But it's an important thing. You need to so those are the things you need to know about the company that you're applying for.
So many of our parents said, "So, what are the skills that I need to best prepare my child for life after high school?"
Hmm.
And I think both of us would say the academics will come. It is these set of skills that we're talking about, being able to interview, being able to ask cogent questions, being able to field questions that are asked of you that aren't monosyllabic answers. You
Hmm.
know, when our kids were young, our older kids, there was a phone that hung on the wall in the
Yes.
kitchen, and they had to learn to answer the phone, right? Kids don't have to do that anymore. So, I have a suggestion for parents. If you have a child and they don't know what they wanna do, maybe it's time to go to someone, an adult that's not in your family, but someone that they would respect, and say, this is to have your student say, "Miss Alice, what kind of skills do you see in me? What kind of personal skills do you see?" And to be able to take that question and then learn from that what they might want to explore. And in all honesty, Alice, I know I've heard you say this, that exploration needs to be the students, not the parents. So can you
Yes.
talk in a little bit more depth about that?
Absolutely. Um, I know that the term helicopter parenting has been one that has been around for a while, and I'm not suggesting that we are helicopter parents. I do think that home educating parents tend to have a little bit more of a hovering. okay, that they need to just chill. They need to quiet those engines a little bit. And the tendency is to do something for your child. Like, okay, they missed an appointment. Okay, hey mom, would you call? No, I'm sorry. You need to be the one on the phone. You need to be the one calling for this. You need to be the one learning how to apologize, you know, and that's a simple thing of I recognize that what I did was wrong and it inconvenienced you. I'm really sorry. It's not just saying I'm sorry, but having your kids be able to have those kind of conversations, and they need to be what your role is to say, I'd like you to interview 4 people in our church and find out what jobs they held in their life. What is the story of their life, so that they can get comfortable to talking to older, more experienced people, but to bring those stories back to know how to ask the questions. But you have got to, and this again, this starts in middle school, Gretchen. You know,
Yes.
you start them, you send them up to get the refill at the counter. You know, you let them order their food. And so, it's like you capitalize on all of these just seemingly very small opportunities to just give them that boost of encouragement.
It's funny, my one of my children was on the phone with me last night, and she has the opportunity to interview for an interim assignment. Now, she works full-time, but she has had the opportunity to do something additional for a period of time, and she said that she's waiting for the interview time, and she said, "I know that if I get the interview, I'll have the job." And she said, "I want to thank you, Mom, because I vividly remember sitting around our kitchen table and you firing interview questions at us and
Yes,
saying, 'How would you answer this question? And how would you answer this question?'" And she said, "That was a really low stakes proposition for us because we were talking to our mom.
right?
But if we could answer the questions in that situation, then we could answer them somewhere else." And she's about to be 34 years old, and she said in passing as we were drifting away from this portion of the conversation, she said, "You know what? I've never interviewed for a job I didn't get."
I
And
understand
that
that.
starts at home. And this is what we as parents need to recognize, that this is on par with the academics we're trying to impart to our children.
It really is, Gretchen. Yeah, and in the similar vein, uh one of my youngest girls, her first job was at Cracker Barrel. It's at 16. And when she went in to interview, her first interview, what I mean, she was hired on the spot. And the manager walked out because she knew, I mean, we had other kids that worked there. And and it was said to her, yeah, that was her first interview. And she said, it was not. And I said, oh, yes, it was. And from there, she started moving up into management into every job that she got. And when it came time for a nice job with the state to come along, in which she had to know how to manage, how needed to know how to have those hard conversations, that she needed to know how to organize her time and her day. Yeah, she nailed it. She got that interview from a phone interview. She got the job. And so those things again, those things need to be introduced into you. It's not like you
Yes.
can take a book and study and go, okay, yeah, I'll take a test and pass this. No, this needs to be just everyday experiences for your kids.
Talk a little bit about the validity of doing something without compensation. I know I've heard you talk about this, about getting an unpaid internship and getting the experience of doing something, about volunteerism as well.
It hurts sometimes, but it's such a good experience, and it's something that you can put down on that resume when you are making applications to college, if you choose to go to college, or at a job. Um, we had a program around here, and I honestly don't think it's still in existence, but our children volunteered at our local hospital. and they could choose which area to go into. Our son chose food service, right? And I think our daughter, she chose something like a candy striper, so she was
Mhm.
in
Sure.
long-term care. Uh, it was an unpaid thing. It was a volunteer. I mean, that went in the record books as their schoolwork. Thing about that is that, again, that's another situation to where you've kind of pushed them out from underneath your hovering. Okay.
Right.
And they have to learn how to function in an adult world. All
Mhm.
right. But they don't realize how much experience that they're gaining when they do that. So being able going into situations and volunteering and or encouraging your children to volunteer into something that comes along, it gives them a skill that's really, really important. Our son-in-law had to uh his internship, and I was shocked at this. Now, when I was in college, an internship didn't pay. All right. You did
Mhm.
it. It was you got your grade for it, and that was your payment. The
Sure.
experience was the classroom. Uh since then a lot has changed, and you can get a paying internship, but our son-in-law did not get that, and it was tough on him for a while, but there was an experience that he gained in that process that you can't really attach a dollar amount to. So get your kids to volunteer, get them into situations, because it'll also change them. A lot of these volunteer situations will also change them as a person, because they get to see life through different lenses. And they might get an opportunity to see people in need that they would not have had. And that, again, that just brings a real deposit, okay,
Yes.
into those skills and their life.
One of my children, loved everything fuzzy, brought home every squirrel that fell out of a tree, every bird with a broken wing. And when it came time to look for her to have her first internship experience, I suggested that perhaps she inquire at the local veterinary office, which was walking distance from our house. And that was as far as I went as far as the suggestion. She was far enough down in the pecking order in the number of kids in the family that she knew if she wanted that internship, she'd have to have the courage to walk through the door and ask if there was something that she could do.
Yeah.
And what she started doing was emptying trash cans and cleaning up exam rooms after and she did it for free.
Yes.
And today she's a research biologist.
Hmm.
So did she start in the right place? Absolutely. Was she able to take something that fascinated her and create a career from that? 100%. But
Hmm.
was it up to her to create that career or was it up to me? I can't live her life for her. I did not go to college with her. And that's one of the things that we as parents need to talk about. And Alice, you talk about this when we talk about high school transcripts when we present together at homeschool conferences.
Hmm.
Can you talk about how it's important for us to start separating ourselves from our kids and them being responsible for themselves as far as finding the internship and following through with it?
Well, again, Gretchen, I think that we as home educating parents, we want so much for our children to succeed. We want so much to spare them from mistakes that we made. We want so much for them to, just, it's like we want to be their cheerleader. And that is really, really important to do that. I am perceiving that it's harder and harder for home educating parents to know how to start cutting that umbilical cord, you know, and uh, there's a couple of things that play in this. One pertaining to the child and one pertaining us as parents. That child is an individual who is going to be an adult. I love my adult children. Okay. It's so much more fun to have conversations with them. I adore my teenage grandchildren because, oh my gosh, it's like, wow, now I really can have the conversations without the guilt. Okay. So it's like our goal, we need to change how we're thinking about what is our goal for our children. Our goal is to launch a mature, or not, and they're not going to be mature, but on their way to maturity, social person who is able to integrate into society and be a functioning adult with that. And you don't want to deny them those pleasures. You know, they're going to make mistakes. And we as parents, we hate that. We don't want to see them making the same mistakes that we did. But sometimes they have to make those mistakes because they have to learn. All right.
Yes.
And we have to just really say, here's the deep end of the pool. I'm sorry you didn't bring your floaties. And it's either a sink or swim type. And
Yes.
it sounds so horrible, because typically, if I've got parents out there that are, they have a 10-year-old that's sitting there and they're like, I could never do that. Um, I heard somebody say one time, when they start rearranging your kitchen, it is time to kick them out of the house. And so it's like there's a time that their individuation, that their identity becomes who they are, not what mom or dad wants them to be. Now, here's the other thing. For us parents, that's a control issue, you know? And we and you and I also talk in our homeschooling myths. We can't determine if our children are going to be the success or not. We can't determine if they're going to make the right choices with their life, or we don't even know what those right choices are. Our children are going to make choices that are different than ours, and it's going to be uncomfortable. But you're the parent, and your job is to love those kids regardless of their choices in that. That what is happening, what I believe is, I mean, what I saw happening within me, I couldn't cut their identity out of me. I could not see them as something other than my child. And so, there's a little bit of painful carving that has to happen there. They are an individual. All right.
Yes.
And I mean, it's like we're doing this to raise them to be functional, to be these great adults. And then we want to say, but I want to hang on, and I want you to do it my way. And it's like our goal is to raise them to launch them. Our goal is to raise them to launch them.
That's
Okay.
right.
We have to do that launch. We have to quit feeding them. We have to quit answering the phone for them. We have to quit telling them to pick up their socks. And you have to do that. It is better for their mental health. It is better for your mental health too.
Yes. But I think it's also important to understand that that's a process. And I think you've explained that in depth here, that it doesn't happen overnight.
No,
It
it
happens
doesn't.
with intentional conversations, and it happens well before high school. High school should be that transitional period of them slowly taking more responsibility, and us um, loosing the reins of responsibility into their hands. Will they screw it up? Absolutely. My husband says it's a process of giving them enough rope to hang themselves, and then being able to learn from their own mistakes. Alice, I can't believe we're already past the hour. What are your closing thoughts for our audience today?
Well, I'd like to remind people of a couple of things. Um, this is a process, and it is a journey. And it's not a journey that ends when they're 18. I mean, you've got to change. Again, you think about how you think about this. Typically they're 18 and then you kick them out of the house, right? But no, that's there's a lot more to it than that. But if you're wanting to maintain that relationship with your adult children, okay, You start forming that relationship when they are in this middle school and moving through high school. You learn to dance, you learn to listen, you learn to have conversations, and you just accept that this is a journey. This is a journey. And yeah, that's all I got to say on this.
Well, there is one more thing I want you to say, and that is you have taught me over the years of our friendship that it's important for us to be accountable for ourselves. And when we've called it wrong,
Oh,
to go
yes.
back to our children and say, I'm sorry. So can you elaborate a little bit?
Well, here's the thing. We can try to make our kids apologize or learn to apologize when they're young, and that's a good thing to learn how to say I'm sorry. But the fact of the matter is that when you can apologize, when you recognize you have blown it and you are wrong, admitting that to your child is that oh wow, does that build credibility? It builds trust. It builds seeing that you're human and that you are willing to humble yourself. And I'm not talking about just saying, well, I'm sorry I yelled at you. No, this really needs to be the I recognized I yelled at you and that was wrong on my part. I hurt you. I did not need to do that. I was wrong. Please forgive me. You don't make excuses for why you did what you did. No buts. I yelled at you, but not, no, they stop listening after the but. They will not listen after the but. So, in humility, going to your children and say, I made the wrong choices. And in that, you are also modeling for your children how they are supposed to live their life too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think all of you can see why it was so important for me to have this conversation with Alice today. I hope we've given you maybe a roadmap. Your journey will be different from Alice's as it will be different from mine. But what we really want to encourage you is to sit with your children and recognize that the skills that don't come with a textbook and a test are equally important for your child's post-secondary education as the skills that require them to prove they know and have knowledge.
That's true.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. It's a privilege to come into your living room, and we'll look forward to your joining us on this journey again this year. This is the kickoff. You can see why I wanted Alice to be the first conversation of 2026. And we'll look forward to joining you all on Tuesdays from this point forward. Thanks, everybody, for being with us today.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks again for joining us. We're glad to be a part of your educational community. You can help us grow our community even more by rating, reviewing, and subscribing to the show wherever you may be hearing this. Don't forget that you can access the show notes and watch a recording at demilearning.com/show or on our YouTube channel. We'll see you again next time. Until then, keep building strong foundations for lifelong learning.